Hello everyone and welcome back to another Stratagoy video. Today we're doing a first in an entire series of Stormcast videos, and we're starting off with a list review. The list was played by Lawrence. Welcome Lawrence. We met each other at a tournament recently where I brought my Lumneth list, who I also reviewed on this channel. And today you're freeing up some of your time to explain to us how you played this list. It was a Drake-centric list, but other than the casual stuff, or compared to the usual stuff, I would say, you included Star Drake rather than the typical Drake build. So we'll take a look at that shortly.
Thank you for having me, and it's no problem to take some time off to have this interview.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for it because we hadn't actually met before, but I loved the way your list looked. Especially with the Star Drake in it, is just a bit of an atypical choice, I would say, and that makes it very interesting for me to interview you about it.
Definitely.
Okay, so first of all, we'll take a look at the list concept, why you brought what you did, what the meta looked like at the tournament. Then we'll go over some key abilities that concerns this list. Then we'll look at the specific army list. You'll go over an in-depth review of the list and why you build it the way you did. And then we'll look at the 3 matchups you had at the tournament. And we'll round off with a conclusion and maybe some of your last or final thoughts. Last thoughts sounds a bit morbid. Your final thoughts on the list. Okay, for list concept, let's look at the goals first. So obviously this was a tournament list, but why did you bring a Drake list, and why did you bring a Stormcast list? What was the idea behind it?
Well, I've always been a fan of dragons. My first Age of Sigmar army was Flesh Eater Courts because you had zombie dragons and terrorgeists. And afterwards, because of the limited model range, I wanted to expand a bit. And I saw that the Stormcast had a lot of models and a Star Drake. So I decided I want a list with a Star Drake in it. I want an army with a Star Drake in it. So I spent a lot of time painting my Star Drake, and now I want to use my Star Drake, and I want to make it work. So it's really the key centerpiece of my list, that I base everything around it. And we will explain more in the future slides, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Your Star Drake looks beautiful, by the way. We'll show off some pictures later. You also won Best Painted for your army, so congrats on that, by the way. I thought it was really impressive, especially the wings on your Star Drake looked amazing.
Thank you.
If we're looking at the meta, before we saw the list for the tournament, what were you expecting when it came down to threats or anything like that?
Well, it's actually the second time I've used this list in a tournament. Previously I also had a one-dayer in Bruges, where I came up against Iron Jaws and 2 full Storm Drake lists from Stormcast against the national Dutch team, actually.
Oh yeah.
And I learned a lot from it. So the first time I played against an All Dragon list I lost, and the second one I won. But I really noticed the issues with this list is having enough of a damage output. So I was really concerned about Nurgle. Because I knew if I get not much luck with the ward rolls or my damage rolls, then I would be really suffering.
Yeah.
You really want to kill things, and they have to stay dead. So you really need the damage output, otherwise, same with Soul Blight, they come back.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the plays in the meta and how it performs right now, do you feel like it's a list that's still up there, or are you thinking of changing it drastically in the future?
I'm really on the fence about changing my Raptors with Judicators, because another downside is if one Raptor dies, you lose so much of your output potential. Also against Seraphon, when they ignore 1 damage, The adjudicators are a lot better,
Yeah.
but you would then again lose more damage output against Nurgle, for example. The best way to fix it is to ditch the Star Drake, but that's not an option.
No, it looks too good. You can't remove it. You can't remove it now.
No.
Okay.
But I am planning to build a Knight Draconis nonetheless. So
Yeah, I can imagine that would fit in your list quite well. Because mainly it was built around Stormdrake Guard. You had 4 of them, and then you brought 6 Vanguard Raptors as well, with some sprinkling of other elements on top, and the Stardrake, as you mentioned. We'll take a look at that soon. Now, when we're talking about Stormcast and we're looking at their key abilities, there's actually not that much that we need to discuss. It's actually a quite straightforward army. Especially when it came down to Allegiance and Stormhost, there was really not much for me to write down, but you put your army in Signs of the Storm, which meant that you could put a unit in reserve for every unit that you deployed on the field. And at the end of any movement phase, you can set up any of those reserve units more than 9 inches away from enemy units. I can imagine that you did this because you wanted to keep your Raptors safe?
Definitely, it's the only reason actually. You have to keep your Raptors safe. So it's a 1-drop. So if you're unsure about choosing the priority, and you notice you're playing against another Stormcast list, or Luminat, or anything with ranged damage potential, you have to put it to the side.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you risk one model, you lose it. The downside is that you cannot use Thunderbolt Volley if you deep strike from Signs of the Storm.
Oh yeah.
So another way to go around it, which I prefer, is to have it really set in a corner with the Lord Relictor, and then you can translocate in the hero phase and then still shoot in the hero phase.
Mm-hmm. Because the Thunderbolt Volley
then you really take the full advantage.
Yeah, for everyone that doesn't know, once per battle in your hero phase, you can choose one Jessica or Angelos unit, and it can shoot. So it's basically a double shoot command ability. Were there any times in your games, either in the tournament or any games before or after that, where you haven't used that ability on the Vanguard Raptors and you use it on the Drakes, for example? Or you
cannot use it on the Drakes.
Oh, you can't use it on Drakes because
it's not a Justica on an Angelos unit. Yeah.
Okay. So it's literally just there for the Vanguard Raptors.
Definitely.
Okay.
And it's also like the biggest damage output you have. You have to use it as early as possible to cripple or to remove key pieces from the enemy army as early as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hinges on that one turn where you use it.
Yeah. As for Stormhost, you went with the Hammer of Sigmar Stormhost. They only have one ability, but it's quite good. Friendly Hammer of Sigmar units wholly within 12 inches of an objective have a 6+ ward save. I can imagine having that on top of a tanky Stormdrake unit, that's really valuable.
Indeed. I was thinking about going with Guard of Steel Soul with Hallowed Knight, so I have a bubble of a 5-up ward save. But then I would have to give up the Lord Relictor or go with one unit of 2 Stormdrake Guard.
Yeah, do you think in the end you made the right choice of going with Hammer of Sigmar instead of Hammers of Sigmar instead of the Gardas Souldrake build? So Gardas build, sorry, Souldrake. Well, would fit nicely with your team.
I think so because it's much more flexible. The ward is worse, but it still exists. Mm-hmm. But you can't really count on it. It's a nice to have. So yeah, it's another one you could pick is Astral Templar. So you cannot be. So monstrous actions don't have an effect on all of your units, which can be very powerful with your Stardrake and your Stormdrake Guard actually.
Mm-hmm. Alright.
But I thought the 6-up ward save is much more reliable because you're not always facing against monsters.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a good pick as well. When we're looking at the War Scrolls, there's only 3 that we really have to highlight because the others or either just there for the one trick thing like the Relictor, or just to fill up your battle line, right? So you had the Lord Celestant on Stardrake. I thought that he was a beatstick, but you corrected me here and you said that he's mainly just a survivable tank piece, right?
And a bit of utility. It actually does less damage than the Knight Draconis. So the Stardrake is 200 points cheaper and does less damage than the 300 piece equivalent.
Okay.
And to really make use of the Stardrake, you have to look at its other capabilities.
Yeah, so it is more
so
expensive, but it does less damage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what it then gains, so it also makes Stormdrake's battle line just as the Knight Draconis, but you can give it the command rate of -1 to wound on Behemoth. So it's the only command trait, so it's the only piece where it would work. You could combine it with a Karazai or something, but then you have like 1100 points,
Yeah.
2 times -1 to wound.
Mm-hmm.
And I also picked the artifact to reroll all my saves if it has a wound characteristic of 2 or more.
Yeah.
You could go with Arcane Tome because you get a +1 to cast with Stardrake, and then you can maybe more reliably cast Mystic Shield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we'll look at your.
It also provides.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it also provides a -1 to cast in an 18-inch bubble.
Yeah, which
and
is pretty nice.
Best part of it is really eating the models. So every combat phase, after you pile in, but before you allocate your attacks, you can choose 3 models, and you just eat them. And that's the difference between having the opponent choosing the model and you choosing the models that die is really huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that same ability returns on the Stormdrake Guard, right? So they don't only have the hero phase movement, which is fantastic. They also have the mortal wound shooting, which can be a bit fickle, but they also eat models, just like the Stardrake does.
Yeah, but you cannot choose the model and it's just one.
All right, okay. So with the
Stardrake
Stardrake,
has also a shooting attack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
The Stardrake also has a shooting attack, which has an insane range of 30 inches, and combined with its 14 movement, you can really kill key pieces. So if I come against other Vanguard Raptors, they cannot screen or hide away from it.
That is really nice.
It only does 8 damage maximum, but you can make it 2s and 2s. So then you on average hit 4 or 6 wounds, and
that is
with
not
the
bad.
-3 rend, you're almost guaranteed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like it. And then when we're talking about ranged damage, we obviously have to talk about the Vanguard Raptors with the long strike crossbows. So they have a 30-inch ranged threat, which is fantastic. As a Lumineth player, I can attest to that. They have high base damage, but also they add mortal wounds on top.
Yeah. Really, the Raptors is actually the basis of all of my damage. If you compare to the Stormdrake Guard, they can do damage, but it's easily safe stacked. While the Vanguard Raptors, if they shoot in the hero phase, you cannot safe stack. For me, it has an unlimited range threat because you can deep strike it in from Scions of the Storms or translocate it with the Lord Relictor. So there's no way of hiding anything from them.
Yeah. Let's move on to your list because we're already discussing a lot of in-depth tactics right now. So we took a look at some of the key pieces. Now let's look how you combine them. So this list is a Hammers of Sigmar list, as we mentioned. You chose Hold the Line as your grand strategy, and your triumph was Inspired. The Lord Celestant on Stardrake is your general. You chose a Celestine Hammer on him. I want to ask you a question about that later. And then, as you mentioned, you took the Master of the Celestial Menagerie command trait and the artifact Drakescale Armor to make him a bit more tanky. His mount trick is Celestial Instincts, what does that do exactly?
You can retreat and charge, or retreat and shoot, so you have to choose one.
Okay.
That's really useful if you're stuck in combat with something you don't want to be stuck in combat with, because I really want to move the -1 to cast bubble around so I can have easier dispels.
Yeah.
And also to eat models, so you really want to look for what is it good against. The starter deck is units, battle line, anything where you can eat the models easily or more difficultly. Even if there's a 4 wound the model and you eat it, it's like gone.
Yeah.
It's especially good against pink horrors, so you really want to get them into combat with pink horrors. And the second part is that it's also good to tank high damage models, like I think a Morati or a Belacor. If you can get it in combat with them, you just have reroll save rolls, and that's just insane.
And that's from the Drake skill armor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
the
you really
Drake skill
want to
armor,
put
as you
them-
mentioned, it gives you rerolls when the attack characteristic is 2 or higher. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the ruling on the Master of the Celestial Menagerie again? Does that give you extra wounds?
You get when you are attacked in melee, the enemy has -1 to wound.
All right. Yeah, that's it. It used to be so strong when the book had just come out, and it got FAQ'd immediately. It's now only effective on the Star Drake itself, right? Not on any of the other monsters in your list.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And also, if you can reroll with the Drake scale armor, you have a higher chance to trigger the Sigmarite Thunder Shield, so you reflect 1 mortal wound if you roll an unmodified save roll of 6,
Oh yeah.
which happens rarely, but it happens, and it's a nice addition.
Yeah. And you went with
Reduce all
the Celestine hammer instead of the swords. Why did you choose a hammer?
Because it has more rend. Rend is so important now,
Yeah.
so I will go with the highest rend.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's basically it.
Yeah. You combined the Celestant with a Lord Lictor with the Translocation Prayer, as you mentioned, for teleporting around. More on that later. And then you filled up your battle line with 2 groups of Stormdrake guards, 2 in each, and a unit of 5 Liberators. I feel like that unit is just a bit of a filler there. You brought 6 Vanguard Raptors.
It's not really a filler.
Oh no? Okay.
No, you really need to screen your Raptors. So that's why I wanted Liberators and Aetherwings. So you could screen with the Stardrake and the Stormdrake guard, which I do. But once you move further, when you go into their lines, you still need to protect the Raptors.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
so important that they stay alive.
Yeah, so you brought the 5 Liberator bases and the 3 Aetherwings just to screen. At the start, at least. Okay, cool. Is there anything else, because the Aetherwings are the last addition to your list, is there anything else you aim for with the Aetherwings? Because I've always loved that unit because it is so cheap and very flexible. Or has it always been a screen for you in the matches you've played?
It's mainly a screen, but if I see an opportunity to translocate the Aetherwings in the 12 inches from an enemy target, then I get +1 to hit when I do Thunderbolt Volley. So it's the only way that I get 2s and 2s on my Raptors in the hero phase, is if I can translocate them. So it's really, you really have to think, can I keep my Vanguard safe? Are they on the board? If yes, then I can teleport my Aetherwings.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise
For the-
you just keep the Aetherwings back the entire game, or until you feel that the Raptors are safe, or are you a bit more of a risky kind of
Otherwise,
player?
they're just... Well, it depends, depending on the state of the game. At start, definitely a screen. If I can snatch an objective, then I would snatch an objective, but they're just so versatile. They have high movement, they give +1 to hit on your Raptors, and they're cheap screen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You put all of these guys in a battle regiment. Is that just because you wanted to alpha strike with the Raptors, or was there a different way of thinking behind that?
Yeah, you want the choice, huh? If you're going up against Iron Jaws or Soul Blight, you can just say, okay, you can have the first turn, and then they are really afraid of your double turn. If you get a double turn from 1 to 2, you have like 3 shots with all of your Raptors, and the game can be over in 2 rounds then, huh?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't see any use. You could go Hunters,
Yeah, but
but the battle regiment is just so strong.
Yeah, it is.
The choice of going first or second. So if you go into the matches, I will explain how I did it each time.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Why I chose what I chose.
Yeah, if when I was typing in your list, I did notice that you do not have a lot of models first of all, but also not a lot of bodies. Did you encounter any problems with taking or even holding objectives throughout the game?
No, not really. The only time I had problems was against Nurgle. But more on that later.
Yeah, okay. You want to keep the synopsis of each game for later. Okay, that's cool. I can imagine though that when you were building this list, you had a plan or something with it. Like, what was the say if you need to teach someone to play your list as quickly as possible, and you obviously it's matchup dependent, but you want to give them some general advice on how to play it. What's the idea? What do all the pieces do here for you?
So basically you want to keep your Raptors safe. So that depends on the matchup and their threat ranges. If you can have it on the board safe, and you can choose then the turn, give always the turn to the other player, so you have the option of a double strike. If the opponent actually has a good alpha strike against your Raptors or against your unit, then you do have to take the first turn. If you cannot guarantee the safety of your Raptors, you just put them in the heavens and then they cannot touch it. And also try to go second then, because you're really actually playing for the double turn, so you can have the hero face shooting immediately on turn 2. You can do nice tricks with translocation as Stormdrake Guard, because the Stormdrake Guard can move in the hero phase, so you can actually translocate them hero phase movement and then hero phase charge the Stormdrake Guard if there are any serious ranged threats that you face. Because if you do a hero phase charge, you also deny Unleash Hell.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
If you see any gaps for that kind of trick for any ranged threats, do it. It's the best.
Yeah.
But I mean, normally at turn 1 it doesn't happen. It's more like in turn 2 or turn 3 where you will have that option. So don't go immediately all in with your Stormdrake Guard. Try to see if you have an opening and then go in to really touch their key pieces. You don't want to get stuck against high wound, high save, high ward characters or units, because then you will just, get stuck. Yeah. That's why I also picked Warblades, because the Stormdrake Guard are really not killing pieces, they're more of a hold the line, hold the objective pieces.
Definitely. Yeah, they are quite killy against average saves, but once you get into that 3-up save bracket, I would say, then they fall off drastically, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And so much is also dependent on their shooting attack, and it's so swingy. You cannot count on it. Yeah,
it's true. Sometimes you just inflict like 11 mortal wounds with 2 guys, and sometimes it's just 0. Yeah, it is very swingy, extremely swingy. Yeah.
And then really the first turn is so important to kill off important units. So I went against Luminet, and then I really chose the Sentinels. So I did double shooting with Vanguard Raptors, I did shooting with Stardrake, I did shooting with the Stormdrake Guard, all on the Sentinels to try and kill them. And then it really helps if you have multiple pieces that can shoot, because You have your first target. If they are dead by the Raptors, great. I can focus my Star Drake on other models that are also important. Star Drake is actually very nice to kill like a Chaos Sorcerer or those cheap heroes.
So you're using the Star Drake here more as a sniper piece, I feel, like either tanking or picking out small targets to delete.
Yeah, or to, like, if you have a Sentinel unit you want to kill and it's one or two models, then of course you use the final shooting attack for the Star Drake to try and kill those final models. Or if you want to kill a great and clean one, it has 2 or 3 wounds left. Because you rolled lower than average on your Raptors, or they rolled higher on average on their ward saves or saves. You still have options to compensate for that.
Yeah.
And that's really a nice thing to have.
Do you feel like if you would swap out a Star Drake for a Knight Draconis, for example, and you have some points to spare to fill up with whatever you want, would you feel like that's better, or are you actually quite happy with how the Star Drake performed for you?
I think this tournament he didn't die at all, so I was quite happy with his performance. But you get more damage output if you go with the Knight Draconis, because you can shoot twice with the Storm Drake card.
Yeah.
And then you can really teleport your Knight Draconis within range of a target. Then hero phase move with your Storm Drake card, hero phase shoot with your Storm Drake card thanks to your Knight Draconis that you teleported. And then you shoot again, and those are mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So you don't have a hit roll, you don't have a wound roll, and they don't have a save roll. It's just mortal wounds.
Yeah, that can be quite devastating as well. But it is less tanky, and it dies more easily, right?
The Storm Drake guard has 18 wounds, which is the same as a Star Drake, but it's 160 points cheaper.
Yeah.
So depending on what you do, because I think I can make a list where I have 4 Storm Drake guard, but then I can add guard a Steel Soul. You can make them actually more tanky just because of the 5 ward save.
Yeah, would you be able to squeeze in a Knight Draconis and Gardas?
I think so, yes. But I lose the Aether Wings.
Oh yeah. Of
and
course,
the And the Lord Collector is 145 points.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So it's a bit more expensive. It's not that cheap.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know how I messed that up. Maybe that's from a different video. Okay, cool. Thank you for correcting that. I will adjust it when I post this list. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at your matchups, because I think you're very eager to share some insights on these games. So you played your first game against Nurgle, then a game against Lumineth, and then a game against Tzeentch. I included some of the key pieces here, or actually you included them, to give you an overall view on what kind of army you were playing. Also, always feel free to explain about what the enemy brought and how you faced it. Run us through it.
Yeah, so I'm not really quite familiar with Nurgle, but we had Lord of Afflictions with a 4-up after save, a great and clean one, a lot of big bears, just a lot of wounds. Yeah. And I knew I was going to struggle, so I really wanted to pick off the key pieces. I knew the great and clean one could make the plague bearers 3 wounds each instead of 2 wounds, so I thought I should kill that one first. Also, he had Blight Kings on the little flies and the Lord of Afflictions that he could deep strike. But yeah, I had the battle regiment, and I think I could choose who goes first. So I chose, of course, Nurgle to go first because he didn't have
shooting.
Any ranged threats.
Yeah.
So it was really easy for me to just deploy everything on the board. I'm safe for the first turn. Even if he deep strikes and he gets his charge off, I screen in a way that I can, that my Raptors are safe, and that I could unlock that Unleash Hell with 2 dragons. And then it was just like choosing the correct priority target. In the beginning I went for the Great and Clean one, which I used Unleash Hell for. But I couldn't kill him, so I shot twice with my Raptors, I shot with my Star Drake, and he survived on something like 5 wounds. It's an 18 wound model with a 5 up after save.
Yeah, very
and
tanky.
He made a very tanky, and okay, tough luck. And then he healed, and then he healed again, so there was no double turn, but he just healed twice, and I can just start over again.
Yeah.
But I think on my second round I was able to kill him finally. But I think by then I got so behind on killing his models that I just couldn't overcome it anymore.
Yeah, Nurgle is a very tough matchup. I actually piloted this list as a practice game against Ryan when I was still at home before the tournament. So I played this list myself, and I had actually a lot of fun playing it, first of all, but it is very difficult to deal with. I noticed that Ryan, who also played 4 Stormdrake Guard, had a tough time dealing with the 5-up ward save especially, but just the abundance of wounds, right?
Yeah, I still remember I was up against, I think, 3 Blight Kings, so that's 13 wounds in total. I was in combat with my Star Drake, and I think 2 units of Stormdrake Guard against it. So I chose kill the battle line. And I thought, okay, I don't need to shoot it with my Raptors. I have 500 plus 680 points against one half strength unit of Blight Kings. I should make it. But in the end, I should have shot him with my Raptors, because I instead shoot the Lord of Afflictions. I did maybe 6 wounds. And again, because he can, hero face healing, and he also, because he has also a Nurgle ability to heal, he went up to full health, and I was unable to kill. I think there was 1 Blight King with full HP left. So even when you're, it was really horrible for me, but when you go up against those lists, really don't count on getting your battle tactics. Don't think, I have so many wounds against it. No, really put everything.
Yeah, don't be
because
greedy.
If I had shot the Blight King, I might have killed it with the monster, so I would have gotten 3 points with the battle tactic. But instead, I chose the Lord of Afflictions.
Yeah.
And he healed fully.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
I lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't go greedy at all.
Yeah,
except when there's no other option. So if you really, you're behind, you really need those lucky rolls, then you go for it. Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I think especially at the start, as you mentioned, you kind of need to guarantee whatever you can, right? So if you're thinking I'm going to kill that unit, really dedicate all your power into killing that unit, because it will come back, or it will heal if you don't finish it off.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a loss
3
for
points.
you. Yeah. And did you lose by a lot? Do you remember?
I lost by 3 points.
Oh, so it was very close. Yeah. Okay, so
and really, if I had killed the Blight Kings, I would have gained those 3 points. So it's really those choices that could have, even if you're down on your luck with dice and everything, you can still make better choices to try and win.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I kind of like that about Age of Sigmar, though. When you look at it and you go, okay, in hindsight, if I had done this and this and this, I could still have won. So it's not always list dependent, even though the internet would really make you want to believe that. Yeah. Let's look at your second matchup then.
And also
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Also try to find ways. I don't try to blame the dice, even if it's obvious. I do blame the dice, but I always try to find a way what other choices could I have made that would have changed the outcome.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So that's what I also had in Bruges when I lost against the Dragon List. I could have won if I had won the turn roll, but I played for the third roll, which I shouldn't have.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then I could have still won.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's also how I changed how I play. Never count on a double turn, never count on winning the turn roll, always assume the worst.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Unless there is no other option.
Yeah. Maybe even good life advice. Let's move into your second matchup, because you played against Lumineth there. It wasn't my list, it was Tim's. He brought 20 Wardens, 20 Sentinels, well, a lot of Wardens, but one block of 20 Wardens. 20 Sentinels, Eltharion, and a whole mix of heroes. How did that matchup go for you?
So we had both battle regiments. I won the roll-off, so I could choose to shoot. I could choose the turn order, so I actually wanted to go first, because I wanted to kill the Sentinels before he could cast his 5-up after save, before he had the option to shoot me.
Yeah.
So that's a place where when you win the roll-off, you go first. I deployed in a way where 4 of my Raptors were in range, 4 of my 6. So I actually opted to just let them stand and not teleport them at all.
Yeah.
I also moved my Aether Wings in the heavens, because I wanted to deep strike them somewhere so I could have in the shooting phase a +1 to hit. And the reason why I did that was because I was going to try the translocate move and charge with my Stormdrake card, but I didn't do it actually because he screened too well.
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake on my part. I should have put the Aether Wings on the field so I could have an option to teleport them in the hero phase. But in the end, my first priority target was the Sentinels, and I really had to kill them because he had the Life Swarm and he had Rally, so you really have to kill all 20. But with -1 to hit, he has a +1 to save in Shining Company. My hero phase shooting did, I don't know, 2 wounds, 3 wounds.
Oh really? That's really bad. Yeah, the +1 to save is from the Aether Cords then.
No, is Shining Company also gives +1 to
No,
save?
it's only -1 to hit.
Only -1 to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You could, maybe he did it in the hero phase then.
Yeah.
And then in the shooting phase, I went with all 6. I think combined with my Stardrake, he had 3 Sentinels left.
That is tough.
Then I went with my, He also redeployed in a way, so I couldn't get my Aether Wings within 12 inches of his Sentinels, which was really strong, because you can only deep strike at the end of the movement phase. So I moved everything up. I moved my Stormdrake card up because I wanted to be able to do their shooting and charging with them.
That is a nice play. Well done, Tim. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I was really impressed.
Yeah.
And I think I won because I had a 10-inch charge with 1 unit of Stormdrake guard on the Sentinels. Because he redeployed forward, he created space between his screen and the Sentinels, where my Stormdrake guard could flew over them.
Yeah.
But I got lucky on the charge roll, and I went for it, and then I think the Sentinels survived with... I know they just died. They just died because of my Stormdrake guard. I didn't make the same mistake. I just went all in with 2 Stormdrake guard on 3 Sentinels to really make sure that they died. But yeah, that was really lucky on my part. I mean, I had bad luck with the shooting first, but then I had a lucky charge. So in the end, it balances out.
Yeah.
Mistakes on my part was not having enough of good screens on my Vanguard Raptor, because he was actually able to teleport his Altarion make the 9-inch charge into my Lord Relictor with my Vanguard Raptors. I did Unleash Hell, Altarion survived with 1 hit point. I was really scared, but he chose to kill my Lord Relictor because he had a bad experience with the Lord Relictor.
Yeah.
He did that, which I think is a mistake. If you can kill the Raptors, I would do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because at that point,
But yeah.
the Lord Relictor really doesn't have that much value anymore because everything's already up the board, right?
No, the only value he had was translocating the Raptors around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if the Raptors are dead, then he can just translocate himself to objectives, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say as important.
And did you manage
So
to
he killed the Lord Relictor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so he killed the Lord Relictor, and then it was just. He also killed my Stormdrake guard that went deep into enemy lines against the Sentinels, but in the end I just tried to kill his Wardens because that was the second threat. Make sure that he also had like the cavalry with the double movement, I think, so I had to make sure that they couldn't reach my Raptors, and then just every shooting phase tried to shoot off the high valuable targets, so the Wardens and the Sentinels. And then once those are dead, it was over. I think by turn 3 it was over.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a good win for you, or only by a small margin?
Well, it was, yeah, so the list I play, so apart from Nurgle, I always win with 20 points difference, or 20 points, the 20 points difference, positive or negative. Or I lose very hard, or I win very hard.
Yeah.
Because once I lose my key pieces, it just goes downhill so fast, it's really difficult to go back. The exception was Nurgle, because he was just such a slow wall of flesh that just keeps on killing stuff and doing mortal wounds and this and that. It's, yeah.
Yeah. What a nice description. A slow wall of flesh. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then your last game was against Tzeentch, which is a army that we don't see very often anymore. And it was a bit of an atypical build, right? Because only still horrible, but okay, it's only 10 pink horse and then mainly flamers.
Yeah. And no Kairos, no Lord of Change. I think he had blue scribes and like a changeling.
That's so original. Tell me about that experience. How did that go?
Yeah. So it was a horrible experience for him. Let me be honest, because with the fate dice he didn't roll higher than a 3.
Oh wow.
So his plan was to really, guarantee the teleport with the pink horse. So he had the bridge, so he could teleport the pink horse and then guarantee a 9-inch charge into my line. Okay. But before we went to the fate dice, we had deployment. So what I did was I asked, what is the threat range of the flamers? So it's 27 inch. And he also had flamers on a burning chariot, which was 33. And the 33 was really impossible to screen, or to deploy out of it.
Yeah.
Because I had the range advantage otherwise, I deployed everything outside of 27. So he couldn't move and shoot with his flamers, only with his flamers on chariots. And then I was like, okay, so he gets, so I assumed he gets he also won the roll-off, so he deployed first, so I could really counter-deploy. So then I put my Raptors in the heavens, because I knew 30-inch range from the flamers on chariot, no way to avoid it, even with the bridge that you could teleport any unit, there's no way to avoid his shooting. So I had to deploy it in the heavens. Everything else out of 27, so he could only shoot with the chariots. So because he rolled so poorly on the fate dice, he couldn't really teleport his pink horrors and then charge me to have me be stuck in combat. I think I also deployed in a way where he could only like touch one unit of Stormdrake guard.
Okay.
So I deployed them far from each other, and with the Stardrake in the middle, so that the Stardrake could easily countercharge the Pickhonger horrors with his, eating them up, because that's really the counter against them. If all 3 goes through, they lose 15 wounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he had to change his plan. So instead he teleported Flamers, Exalted Flamers, and Chariots. So he got the first round of shooting. He tried to kill my Relictor with 2 Flamers, which he failed because I allowed defense, and he didn't do enough damage to kill one of my Stormdrake guard. So he actually had a wasted turn and completely out of position. And then I just went in. I killed priority targets, so the Flamers, Exalted Flamers, whatever. I dropped my Vanguard Raptors as well, and then I won the double turn, and then it was just insult on the injury, and it was over at turn 2.
That is rough.
That was, yeah. He lost with the Fate Dice, and he lost the double turn, and then it just over.
Yeah.
Because the Flamers and Exalted Flamers are just so squishy.
Yeah.
I focused them. He only had the pink horse left at the end of my turn 2. So he played 1 turn, and he only had the pink horse left when he was able to play his second turn.
Yeah. Wow, that was that must have been a really horrible game for him. But good job on you, right?
Yeah, I'm saying, like, sometimes you just get lucky, and sometimes you get unlucky, and you try to make the best of it. I always try to play with the worst case scenario, so I really deployed my Raptors in a way. So after deep striking them, so I put them in a way that he couldn't touch them at all, because he already has spent his bridge. It was still on the field. He couldn't dispel and recast it again, and it was outside of the 27-inch range of all of his Flamers, because I killed the Burning Chariots first because of their 33-inch threat range, and then I went for the 27-inch threat range Flamers.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that was your matchup, and you did end up high up in the ladder, right?
Yeah, because I won 20-0 with Lumineth and Zinj, and then just lost with 3 points against Nurgle. It was a differential scoring.
Yeah.
I think, I got lucky in the end.
All right, cool. Let's take a look at some pictures. Okay, so the first picture is of your army here, and I hope all the viewers look up now when if they're painting, because really right now is the time to look at those beautiful wings of that Stardrake. That is amazing. How did you, honestly though, like apart from the video or apart from what I already mentioned in the tournament, when I went home, I was like, how did he actually paint that? Is there a guide you followed? Are you just really good with like very minimalistic painting or a small painting, or?
No, I don't have an airbrush, so I already was a fan of the Galaxy Wings, but I didn't have an airbrush, so I was trying to find a way to do it easily with a normal brush, and I looked on Instagram, and I found just lucky find that someone painted it like that, and when I looked deeper in it, I saw a video of him doing it, and it's actually really easy. It's less time consuming than the white armor that I have to do.
Really?
All of my... Yes, and it's... How do I say it? It's a time effective way to have a really nice result.
Yeah.
It's really eye-catching, and it's like a last bit of extra you do. You spend maybe half a day on it, on all of those galaxy effects, and it just looks the result is there. Huh?
Yeah,
it just looks good.
I agree. And the white armor, as you mentioned, I mean, I paint Lumineth, so I feel your pain, but it's not that much white. What's your recipe?
So I changed the recipe over time actually, but I go with a black primer now, then a white zenithal, also with the rattle can. Then I do Griff Charger Grey contrast paint. And then I go back to Grey Seer, Ult 1 Grey, and then complete flat white if it's like a hero or a centerpiece model. And you just have to go back and forward between the Griff Charger Grey to have the deeper, the darker parts and to have a smooth transition. Because the panels that you have with Stormcast is really big.
Yeah.
You really need to have those transitions smooth, and it just takes a lot of back and forth and time to do it.
All right. You also brought some pictures from your match with Lumineth. Is this turn 1?
Yeah. I think this is turn 2.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the... So you see the one dragon on the left? Those were 2 dragons, and there are no sentinels there, so they are gone.
Yeah.
And I think it's before he wanted to teleport his Altarions, so you see it's on the front left, in front of his wardens. He was able to teleport them outside of 9 of my Raptors, which was behind of my dragons. It's hard to see, but I didn't screen well there.
Yeah.
So I put my Liberators there in front with my Star Drake to block the movement of the horses, because I was afraid of the horses, because they could reliably get to my Raptors, but I didn't take into account of the teleport. I wanted to dispel it with my heroic action. So that's what I also most of the time do, because I don't have any casters. I pick as a heroic action the ability to dispel with my Star Drake, because you combine it with the -1 to cast bubble that he has.
Yeah.
But I failed to dispel, and he made his charge on the reroll, and then I was really afraid, because it could just turn like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I am not a fan of Altharion at all. I don't think he's good. I think he's actually really bad. He has never performed well for me, so maybe that's just my perspective, because I know some people in the Discord channel really like Altharion. I love the model. I loved his lore in the world that was, as they say. But now it's just, I would actually compare it to Stormdrake shooting, where you can really, if you roll a lot of 6s, he really goes off. But if he doesn't, it's just so weak. Yeah, but he did kill your Lord Relictor. He's sort of survivable, but he's really bad against mortal wounds. So any spells or mortal wound damage just goes straight through, right?
Yeah, but that's against everything in Stormcast as well. Everything is weak against mortal wounds except Nurgle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's obviously true. It's just that for his point cost, I think he's 225 right now. 8 wounds. That is a bit expensive for me.
I think Star Trek is also a bit expensive, but I still take him.
Yeah. Definitely true. Definitely true. Yeah. And then the last picture.
Because he also.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. The Star Trek also dies to mortal wounds. He has 18 wounds with 6 up after save in my list. Mortal wounds just kill him.
Yeah.
Which happened against other Stormdrake lists, but yeah.
Yeah. And in this last picture is just a more zoomed in picture of the first one that we saw. I like how it kind of emphasizes the gradient colors on the horns here. Is that just like faded out wash, or did you use contrast for that, or
glazing again? I think. What was my white? It's dried bark for the dark colors.
Yeah.
I think the white is ivory from Vallejo.
Oh yeah, okay.
So just mix it, layer it or glaze it, and that also took a lot of time. All the claws and the hooks and the horns, a lot longer than the galaxy effect.
Yeah, I mean the transition on those horns is so smooth. That must have taken ages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can really appreciate that. I am much too lazy
But
to
I
do
also
that
like
gradient.
the fiery brush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Dry
so
brushing is easier.
yeah,
Stormdrake after just
definitely. Yeah.
just dry brushed
Yeah. Yeah.
contrast and dry brush and it looks good.
Okay, so with that, we kind of come to our conclusion. So let's talk about your tournament results, about some change that you might make, if any, and if you have any final thoughts. So, did you end up fourth or third?
Third, yes.
Yeah. So you went home with 2 prizes, one for best painted and one because you went third, right?
Yeah, I think I could be very happy with it because, I had 2 wins, 1 loss, but I lost with a small point differential and then I won 2 times with a huge point lead.
Yeah.
So that's basically what happened. My result in Bruges was actually 9th.
Okay.
But we were with 32 people as well, so a lot more actually. But that was because I lost with 20 points and I won twice with 20 points.
Yeah.
So it really makes a difference. Huh?
Yeah, I can imagine. And if you were to look at your list, and I mean, we all already talked about this a little bit, I guess. But are you planning on on making some changes? Maybe the Nitroconis, as you mentioned, with Gardas, or do you prefer the list as it is right now?
So actually, the one who went first in this tournament had actually the same point of thought that I had.
Yeah.
But instead of the Stardrake, he had the Nitroconis, and he was able to bring in an extra Stormdrake Guard unit with him. And he went first. So that's also my go-to fix actually, getting the Nitroconis, but then you lose the Stardrake.
Yeah. So.
And I hope.
If you were to optimize your results, you kind of want to aim for the typical Stormdrake Guard list that we discussed. By the way, if the viewers are interested in our tournament reports. Yeah.
Yeah. Because with the Stormcast, it does not have like the technical or intricacies like you have with Luminet.
Yeah.
You just have like 1 extra command ability once per battle and
Yeah.
1 battle trait or something. So you're really dependent on the war scrolls, and then you just have to pick the best war scrolls for your points.
Yeah, that's what makes him so good in Cities of Sigmar as well, right? Because one of my friends who's a Stormcast main mentioned like if he were to play the dragons competitively and he means Karazai or Krondis, then they're just so much better in cities because their war scroll is what it is, and from just having them in Stormcast you don't really gain anything.
So I already talked about Guard of Steel Soul, which I think is a very, very good war scroll because of the 5 ward bubble.
Yeah, definitely.
Because 5 ward is twice as good as the 6 up after save.
Yep.
Which you could do. I could also try to swap out a Stormdrake Guard and the Liberators with 2 Fulminators.
Yeah.
To really get the damage potential up. But I don't have Fulminators, and I think they're ugly, and I like Evocators and Dracolines a lot more. So that's not what I'm doing. And the other option is going with Judicators, and that's a really interesting choice, because now I didn't went up against Seraphon, but if you go up against Seraphon with Raptors, they lose half their damage output. It's just divided by 2. It's really horrible. And also because they're Seraphon, they can do mortal wounds everywhere at any time. You lose 1 or 2 Raptors and gone is the damage, and you really cannot compensate with your dragons or
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, Seraphon are just overall a bit overtuned, I think. If you look at the statistics for them right now. Yeah.
But I think the Judicators would be a good counter pick for that. Also because if you lose 1 or 2 Judicators, it doesn't hinder your damage output as much, so you can really use them much more as a like self-reliant, you don't have to screen them as much, but you lose again a bit of damage output.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Any?
those are the options you could.
Yeah, yeah. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Something that you thought about or still wanted to share with the viewers?
I'm just saying, yeah, dice are what they are.
Yeah.
You can always blame your losses on dice. I do it as well, but I always try to find a way to see what choices I could have made better.
Yeah, that is a really good tip to to end the video on. All right, so thank you, Lawrence, for all the time and effort that you put into making this video with me. Also, thank you everyone for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and even share if you thought this was useful. If you want to see more of these kind of videos, if you want to hear more about Lawrence or about his list, please leave a comment. And if you want to continue the discussion, feel free to join our Discord server, because that's really where we're talking more in depth about everything. So with this, I would like to end the video. Thank you again, and have a great day.